Good morning, good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Today it's Friday, January 22nd, the ninth day of Shabbat. I hope everyone is having a good Erev Shabbos, great week, heading into a great Shabbos here at Eitz Chaim. We are now in the beginning of our Yeshiva week vacation. Things got slightly changed this year because of all the protocols, but the vacation is taking place nonetheless. So I have a number of people that are away, and if you can help the minyan, it would be greatly appreciated, morning and evening throughout the week. Again, we have a number of people saying Kaddish, but it's a good opportunity to get into the swing of things. Today's Erev Shabbos Devar Torah is sponsored by Maggie and Cliff Newman. This Motzoi Shabbos and Sunday, Cliff will be observing Yurtzeit for his mother, Charlotte Newman. Charna Bas Nachman Ber, Neshama should have an Aliyah. And again, in her honor and memory, we will say this Devar Torah and thank you for the sponsorship. And you know that the great level of kibud aim that Cliff possesses when there is a Packer playoff game on Sunday. But of course, in deference and honor of his mother, he will be here to say Kaddish accordingly and not be in Green Bay. I guess they're having people there. I don't know, but looking pretty good this year, the Packers. So lots of luck to you, Cliff, and we know how much of a fan you are. So as we read Parashas Bo knows Torah, if you'll get that one, we start thinking of Pesach, because much of the story of the Exodus is here. Pieces of the Haggadah are found here, and I want to share with you Rabbi Sachs's insight. Again, I cannot recommend enough Rabbi Sachs's book, Judaism's Life-Changing Ideas, gem each and every week. And the title of this week's piece is called The Story We Tell. And we've discussed this a lot, but more around Pesach time, about the importance at the Pesach Seder of telling your family story. What is your story? And Rabbi Sachs begins by saying that when Moshe is instructing the Jewish people about Exodus and what they should do, he's not talking about freedom and he's not talking about Israel, but he's talking about questions. The duty of parents to children, that the parents have to tell their children a story. I'll read you some quotes. He tells the Bnei Yisrael to do what the Jews have done from then to now. Tell your children the story. Do it in the maximally effective way. Reenact the drama of exile and exodus, slavery and freedom. Get your children to ask questions. This, of course, is the crux of the Pesach Seder. We are the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, and identity begins in the story parents tell their children. So, in the framework of our lives, we have to figure out what is the story that we're telling. So in one of the conversations we're having over the last number of weeks, if you think about it, let's say in 20 years from now, what are we going to tell the future generations about 2020? There's so many things happen, and obviously this is a whopper of a year that we just experienced. And how are we going to speak in 20, 30 years about the pandemic, about the divisiveness in this country, about how Judaism thrived and how our shuls did during this period when, we're going to go back to a time of taking for granted the fact that our shuls are open, that we could daven every day, things like that. How is the story going to be framed in a future time? The narrative provides the answer to three fundamental questions every reflective individual must ask at some stage in their lives. Who am I? Why am I here? How then shall I live? And here are the Jewish answers to this question. I am a member of the people whom God rescued from slavery to freedom. I'm here to build a society that honors the freedom of others, not just my own, and I must live in conscious knowledge that freedom is the gift of God, honored by keeping his covenant of law and love. Rabbi Sachs then goes into an historical insight as to when this identity was lost. First, the Enlightenment, but I want to focus on what he says about the past 50 years. And this is, by the way, prophetic. Interesting how he actually writes this given what we've been through. And for the past 50 years, the West has been engaged in a second attempt to abolish identity, this time in the opposite direction. What the secular West now worships is not the universal, but the individual, the self, the me, the I. Think about it. Everything is, in life is my iPhone, my iPad, my this, everything is I. Morality, the thick code of shared values bonding society together for the sake of the common good, has been dissolved into the right of each individual to do or be anything he or she chooses, so long as they do not directly harm others. Identities have become, this is where I found it interesting, the phraseology. Identities have become mere masks we wear temporarily and without commitment. For large sections of society, marriage is an anachronism, parenthood delayed or declined, and community a faceless crowd. Oh, we have stories, there's Harry Potter, there's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, but these are fantasy. Such a world is supremely tolerant until it meets views not to its liking. When it becomes quickly brutishly intolerant and eventually degenerates into the politics of the mob. This is populism, the prelude to tyranny. Again, if you get canceled for whatever reason because you hurt somebody's feelings or somebody doesn't like the way you look or say, that's what we've become. And then he goes on to write, however, this will not last. Again, I recommend everybody to get the book and read the article. But here's where he finishes, and this is something, especially when we're commemorating a yahrzeit of a Yiddish mama, and we see the legacy that Maggie of Cliff have continued from their families, and we've seen it to a second and now third generation, the thriving generation. The greatest gift we can give our children is not money or possessions, but a story, a real story, not a fantasy, one that connects them to us into a rich heritage of high ideals. We are not particles of dust blown this way or that by the passing winds of fad and fashion. We are heirs to a story that inspired 100 generations of our ancestors and eventually transformed the Western world. What you forget, you lose. The West is forgetting its story. We must never forget ours. With the hindsight of 33 centuries, we could see how right Moshe Rabbeinu was. A story told across the generations is the gift of an identity. And when you know who you are and why, you can navigate the wilderness of time with courage and confidence. That is a life-changing idea. The reason why we have been successful to the degree that we have been during the last year, again, is because of our identity. When we're grounded and rooted in shul life, tradition, davening, learning, togetherness, even when separate, that's what allows us to survive, because we know our identity and we don't get blown around like particles of dust, as he says. This is something that probably we often think about when it comes time for a yahrzeit. Yahrzeit, we reflect on our loved ones. We think of our mothers and fathers and everything that they gave up so that we can have what we have. Anybody speaks to Cliff for 2 seconds, he'll tell you about everything he didn't have. Life was not about wealth, but the values that he got and what he's been able to build on. And we see Maggie and Cliff, the tremendous mazel should only continue the nachas that you have from your children and your grandchildren. That's a true identity, and that's something you should really be proud of. And I'm sure that your mother, Charna Bas Nachman Ber, would be unbelievably proud to see the legacy that she helped create and that you are working so hard. You, Maggie and Cliff, are working so hard to continue. So in the merit of your holy work, may her neshama have an aliyah, and may we all understand who it is that we are. May we all never lose sight of our true identity, and may we all have chapters and chapters to keep telling in the story that is us, and the story that is our people, and the story that is our future. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom, a restful, peaceful Shabbos, and we'll see you all very soon.